Kings of Leon is a band consisting of three brothers, Caleb, Nathan, Jared, and also their nephew, Matthew Followill. The band formed in Nashville, Tennessee back in 1999 and has, during the 2000s and 2010s, created this legacy for being one of the biggest rock bands ever. In today's video, I thought I'd take a closer look at one of their biggest singles, Closer. It's an effect-drenched, melancholic, and ultimately super satisfying song that contains some of my favorite riffs from the band. We'll talk about the song's odd sound effects, epic riffs, and also their set of compositional techniques. This is Closer by Kings of Leon. Kings of Leon is probably one of the biggest success stories of modern rock music. The band has released 7 albums so far, with a new one just around the corner. The band gained recognition right out of the gate with their first album, Youth and Young Manhood, gaining positive reviews in the UK and Ireland. Fast forward 3 albums and we find their most celebrated record yet, the multi-platinum selling Only by the Night. 4 singles were released together with the album: Sex on Fire, Use Somebody, Revelry, and Notion. The opening track, Closer, was never released as a single, but quickly became a fan favorite as time moved on. Sure, Closer doesn't have that same arena rock feel as Use Somebody or Sex on Fire, but that's also what makes it unique and good. It's a slow burner that kinda grows on you over time. About the recording of the song, bassist Jared Followill said, quote, "We were sitting around the studio, and as far as the bass line goes, I had a bass line that me and Nathan were working together on. But as we don't use a click track, it was like a repeat pedal that we couldn't get down, so we thought about not even doing it. Right before we started, I clicked on an octave pedal and started playing." In the very beginning of the song, we hear Jared playing bass alone, and he's using this effect pedal to kind of shift the pitch of the B, D, and C sharp chords to an octave higher. This creates this dreamlike atmosphere that immediately catches your attention. It also tricks the listener into thinking that they're listening to something that's even more depressing and melancholic than what it really is. But more on that later. In the next 4 bars, we see an addition of another clean bass track. There's also Nathan's drumming that kind of stumbles into the picture with this dotted and offbeat kick and snare pattern. The drums especially add this new layer of uncertainty in the song. Another 4 bars in and we're greeted with one of the most chaotic parts of the entire song. If you check out some of their live performances, you will see lead guitarist Matthew Followill kind of carrying up his guitar towards his mouth and then screaming into the humbuckers, the microphones of the guitar, and creating this sound that doesn't sound like a voice, but it doesn't quite sound like a guitar either. To balance out all this chaos, Caleb plays this clean, sparse, and airy guitar melody in the background that goes throughout the entire song. While playing, he's also singing, and the lyrics are quite interesting. He's actually singing about this lovesick vampire. This vampire is stuck in a dark and spooky town. He apparently lost a loved one, and now he's being forced to take this dark path in life, where he's running with the moon and avoiding the fiery carnage, as it says, of the sun. The lyrics are flavored by Caleb's guitar. You can hear it in the background of the entire song, and it functions as a skeleton for the entire song and as a supporting element for the drums and the bass. But it's not always a supporting element. Sometimes Caleb decides to play some notes louder than others. This makes for a really difficult learning experience if you're trying to learn this on the guitar, for example, and you're just listening by ear. But if you're a casual listener, it might just make it into a more exciting listening experience. The notes that Caleb chooses to emphasize often fall on Nathan's snare hit, and this is on the 4th and the 7th beat throughout the entire song. So the effect of this is that the melody and the beat is very closely tied together in the song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1. Now, one of the things that makes this song even more addictive is the dynamic progression and expansion of the song. Let's use Caleb's guitar as an example. During the first verse, he's mostly just playing singular notes. But during the second verse, he goes from using singular notes to power chords gradually. The story and the lyrics go through changes too. The second verse portrays this new lover, or perhaps it's a flashback to what happened before the vampire was left behind. Through the vague lyrics, we can see that this couple hurt each other. In the end, the vampire sees a storm coming his way, probably a metaphor for the chaos ramping up in his life. And this is very clearly reflected in the song, with the rise of the volume and the power of all of the instruments, and also the addition of new instruments along the way. In the quote that I referred to earlier on, we learned that the band don't use a click track, and this is something that can throw a lot of musicians off tempo while recording. And that actually happens in the song. From what I can tell, Nathan starts out playing at 157 beats per minute and then gradually builds up to around 163 beats per minute. The band probably didn't plan this out to begin with, but ironically it helps the song become even better by adding more tension as the song progresses. It creates an allusion to this storm that the vampire sees bubbling up from the ocean. Personally, I didn't realize that there was a tempo change until this drummer that I'm collaborating with, Maximiliam, mentioned it in a text on Instagram. The song changes in terms of tempo, it gradually increases.
Yeah.
And when you sent me that message, I was like, oh shit, everything I've planned is ruined in a way.
And it's interesting. I think the first time I noticed it was when I went to re-listen to the song. I listened through it once and then I was going to listen to it again. I'm like, wait, this is much slower. So I don't think the first time I heard the song that I thought about it going faster throughout the song. But then you start noticing like, oh, wait, I can't put a metronome to this. Is that because they didn't record with a metronome? What's going on? Oh, they're ending it at a lot faster than they started. It's interesting. But I think it adds a cool thing to the song, the fact that they're speeding up throughout the whole song.
Halfway through the second verse, Matthew comes in with a leading guitar melody that kind of hovers above Caleb's part. Later on, Matthew introduces yet another melody to contrast the previous one, and here he plays this arpeggio pattern of B, D, and A. This is actually a bit of a left field move compared to this bass melody that we heard during the intro of the song. Remember that I said the listener is being tricked into thinking the song is more depressing than what it really is? The first arpeggio is in the B major scale, and it plays the first, the fifth, and also the octave of that scale. Then we jump over to D, and again it plays the first, the fifth, and the octave. Now it feels very tempting to jump down to the C sharp, because that is the melody that was played during the intro by Jared on bass. But if I go from the B and D to the C sharp, it sounds a little bit off. Something not right about that. But Matthew is obviously not playing C sharp, he's playing A instead. And that sounds way more rewarding. It sounds like the song comes to a resolution, and there you go. The song ends on a much more positive note, or arpeggio in this case. Similarly, the story also takes a different turn. The vampire is left on his own without the lover still, but for some reason he feels good. As the lyrics say, he's stranded in love of his own, and maybe he's gained a bit of confidence. Maybe he's ready to leave this spooky town. Who knows? When Caleb sings his final "and it's coming closer," the song reaches its climax, and the rest of the instruments kind of rumble through the last parts of the song. Composition-wise, the song really nails it. It goes from sparse to rich in terms of the soundscape, it goes from quiet to loud, and from slow to slightly faster. This is a really simple yet powerful set of compositional techniques, and Kings of Leon really know how to take advantage of it. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Do you like free guitar lessons? I know I do. If you do too, you should check out my Patreon page and my Instagram for lessons on chords, scales, songs, and all that good stuff. Also, be sure to check out my good friend Maximiliam's channel. He's an amazing drummer and fellow Viking from Sweden. So please check him out. There's links to all of that down in the description below. So that's it. Hope to see you later. Cheers.